Hello, dear friends. All roads lead back to your own soul, according to Judith Castle. Opinion piece. Disclosed Plan. Historical report. System demolition. Saint Germain Fund. Economic headwind. Sovereign monetary system. Decentralization of the economy. Brazil pushes for a BRICS currency. Let's start. The White Hats have released a landmark report outlining a strategic plan to dismantle the current dark-side-linked financial system and establish a new precious metals-backed monetary system with profound geopolitical and economic implications for the entire world. The report details a plan to nationalize the Federal Reserve and launch a new dollar backed by precious metals like gold and silver, according to Drafapal. This system would have a profound impact on the military-industrial complex, which is funded through the endless creation of fiat money and inflated defense contracts. The new gold-based system will impose fiscal discipline, reducing military contracts by 30 to 40% by 2027, and leading to a 15% cut in military bases by 2028 due to restricted funding and the elimination of counterfeit money that fuels secret projects and wars. The report includes the nationalization of 5 major banks, which have been seized and placed under receivership due to their involvement in money laundering linked to cartels and human trafficking, with assets exceeding $2 trillion. These banks are under control, and their leaders have been replaced by accountants loyal to the administration. It also includes the transition to a sovereign monetary system based on precious metals, which will replace the current fiat system. This new system will include currency issuance by the treasury stable coins and digital liquidity managed with blockchain technology, particularly through XRP. The audit of the gold reserves at Fort Knox, which will be publicly announced in the late 2025, will lead to the removal of Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. This will lead to decentralization and regional empowerment, with states like Texas legalizing the use of gold and silver as currency, creating regional precious metals depositories and reducing dependence of the federal government and military contracts. Wealth Fund. The Saint Germain Wealth Trust is a $1 trillion global fund to finance the global financial reset, according to Media Greer. Its activation is a process, not an announcement. It is a massive global trust fund backed by real physical gold and precious assets, accumulated and ancient over generations. The Saint Germain Fund is the financial core of GISERA. All provisions of these laws, from debt relief to tax exemption and financial sovereignty, are designed to be powered by this trust. Designed to operate outside of central banking systems, it was created to restructure global wealth after the collapse of the fiat debt model. Unlike speculative platforms or digital tokens, the fund is tied to physical assets and is intended for real benefit to the people, not corporations, governments, or think tanks, but the global population. The Saint Germain Global Fund is a colossal reserve of precious metals and currencies accumulated over more than 200 years, valued at astronomical figures, and is intended to fund humanitarian projects, cancel global debt, and bring about a global financial jubilee. These funds have been accumulated for decades in European banks, and their goal is universal prosperity and monetary equity for all citizens of the world. These funds are claimed to be under the control of Master Saint Germain and would only be activated twice a year, at Easter and Christmas. These funds are said to be intended to eliminate global debt, acquire large corporations, and implement universal prosperity systems for the population. Why hasn't the world seen this until now? Because the system that controls you has no intention of freeing you. For decades, global banks, the Fed, the IMF, the Vatican, and intelligence agencies have worked in unison to suppress this trust, interfere with its disclosure, and defame any mention of it as a dangerous disinformation in quotes. Why? Because it threatens their existence. The moment this fund is released, its power disappears. The war to free this fund is not fought in newsrooms or in courtrooms. It is fought in digital servers, military vaults, treasury transitions, and geopolitical negotiations. It is the silent collapse of central banks, the collapse of foreign corporate taxes, and the final audit of generations of theft. This is the moment in history when the people not only rise up, but are rewarded. Fulford summary. According to Benjamin Fulford, the Fed is trying to postpone this failure once again by essentially telling banks to increase their leverage well above already unsustainable levels. In other words, with a proper financial system, we could have eradicated global poverty 22 times over the last year alone. The logic echoes the Kalergi plan and a once discarded conspiracy theory in quotes based on real writings that Europe's future would be managed by dissolving nations, eroding them, and creating a population that is easier to govern, uniform, ruthless, and dependent. A destabilized society doesn't rebel, it advocates for control. And when fear dominates, control becomes easy. The EU funds an extensive censorship network called fact checkers, NGOs and projects whose real goal is to promote a single dominant narrative and suppress anything that challenges it. Polish Citizen Go activist Sebastian Lukomski wants that the EU is ceasing to be a community of nations and becoming a centralized control machine. The clearest example is the EU Digital Services Act. China seems to have solved its trash problems. While the West is drowning in plastics and debating landfill bans, China is turning its trash into energy and running out of trash. More than 1,100 waste-to-energy plants in China burn more than 800,000 tons of trash per day, generating energy and reducing landfill overflows. Since 90% of the waste is burnt, this ash is used to make cement. Finally, there is a major media push to promote billionaire Peter Thiel's PayPal idea. He claims that the Antichrist is a collective effort to use fear and corral us all into a totalitarian world government. His solution would be to use technology to seek immortality. We can use current DNA technology to extend our lifespans by thousands of years. We can also become stronger, smarter, and more attractive if we so choose. USA. President Trump signed his ambitious tax and budget cuts bill this Friday. Elon Musk announces the creation of his own political party. A facility in the Utah desert is preparing humans for life on Mars. Tropical storm Chantal makes landfall in South Carolina. White hats suspect fake federal agents kidnapped storm victims and Girl Scouts who disappeared in the Texas floods. U.S. lawmaker calls for ban on weather modification. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene announced a federal bill aimed at banning the practice of geoengineering. Her bill makes the release of weather-altering chemicals a felony. The measure follows devastating storms and flash floods in Texas. Asia. The Dalai Lama turns 90 and spoke about his hope to live more than 130 years and be reincarnated after death. A manga prophecy has raised concerns in Japan and affected tourism, and its author, Ryo Tatsuki, predicted a major tsunami for July 2025. Economy. OPEC increases its oil production. The stock market's rally is being fooled by belief in rate cuts. Investors expect Bitcoin to reach new records in the second half of the year. Nouriel Roubini foresees a mini-stagflationary shock in the second half of 2025. The global economy faces many headwinds, but the aviation industry is expected to defy them. Europe. Parisians bathe in the Seine River after more than a century. Shares in Barclays and Deutsche Bank closed at decade highs on optimism about the trade deal. Germany's historic Reinhardswald forest, famous for its connection to the Brothers Grimm fairy tales and its centuries-old trees, is being cleared to build 18 wind turbines. Spain. Spain is Europe's top destination for illegal immigration. Former PSOE organization secretary Santos Cerdán was imprisoned. Americas. The US will build another waterfall on its border with on its border with Mexico. Mexico's public debt fell to 49.2% of its GDP. 7 out of 10 Mexicans born into poverty have not overcome this condition. The Mexican National Guard confronted organized crime on more than 200 occasions in 2024. Costa Rica enters the group of high-income countries according to the World Bank. The Colombian foreign minister submits her letter of resignation. The Peruvian Congress approves a 122% salary increase for Dina Boluarte. Nearly half of Argentine households are suffering from economic stress. A new case has been opened against 34 people accused of crimes committed during the Argentine dictatorship. Chile's election campaign puts the future of lithium reserves on the table. Brazil pushes for a BRICS currency in the face of financial protectionism. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.